Hello, my name is Kevin Lee. I'm a Senior Product Manager at AWS WAF. And today we will cover what is new within AWS WAF and how you can leverage AWS Managed Rules to protect your web application. So here are some learning objectives that we have for this webinar. First, learn about AWS Managed Rules for AWS WAF. Second, understand the difference between the AWS WAF Classic and the new AWS WAF. Third, get deeper insight into the new API called WAFv2 and understand how the rule writing works using JSON. Lastly, get tips on how you can plan out your migration from WAF Classic to the new AWS WAF. Before I start, I would like to do a quick overview for those new to our service. So what is AWS WAF? WAF is highly configurable and scalable cloud-native web application firewall, giving you the first line of defense to incoming threats. WAF covers the application layer or the layer 7 OSI model. It is meant to protect the business logic. You can use WAF to temporarily patch vulnerabilities without having to make major code changes, block malicious actors from coming in, filter out incoming requests, and reduce the threat vector overall. One thing to stress is that AWS WAF is a tool that you can supplement to your existing security posture, but it is not meant to replace it. This means that your shared responsibility at AWS is still applicable, and you always need to think about your security in the cloud holistically. So AWS WAF works with 3 underlying host services today. These are CloudFront, Application Load Balancer, and API Gateway. It does not require any proxy or TLS setup, given that architecturally WAF is integrated into each host services. In a simplest sense, you can define your security policy, telling us what to block and filter, and then monitor your traffic using CloudWatch or use logging through Kinesis Firehose. We also have integration with AWS Firewall Manager for case where you need to manage multiple WAF deployment across multiple accounts. Here are some key terminology that I'll be using today. First, WebACL, or Web Access Control List, can be thought of as a container that holds all your firewall rules. Second, rule statement dictates how the incoming request should be processed. We will cover more on this later in this webinar. Third, sample requests provide you with quick high-level information about incoming requests and how it was processed by AWS WAF. Fourth, logging through Kinesis Firehose provide full detail into your request itself. And lastly, metrics through CloudWatch provides graphs and dashboard of your traffic flow in real time. So what's new in AWS WAF? Back in last year's reInvent, we launched AWS Managed Rules to help you get started quickly and easily with AWS WAF. The idea behind Managed Rules is that we would cover the common attack vectors so that you don't spend a lot of time managing basic set of rules, thus providing you with a stable baseline to work with. These rules are managed by our threat research team, which is an extension to our DDoS response team from AWS Shield Advanced service. The rules are influenced by the top 10 security risks identified by OWASP community. It is important to stress that all WAFs in general cannot offer you full protection against all attack vectors listed in this top 10 list. AWS Managed Rules are available at no extra charge to you. We offer you 3 different types of rules to choose from. First, baseline, which provides general protection against a variety of common threats, and these include core rule set, admin page protection, and known bad input. Second, use case specific, which provides incremental protection for many diverse use cases that you might have. So if you are running SQL database or PHP or have a different operating system, you might be interested in turning these rule set on. Third, IP reputation lists. These lists provide intelligence about where the request originated from based on the source IP itself. And this can be useful if you need help identifying bots. And some of the lists that we provide today are Amazon IP reputation list and also anonymous IP list for blocking out VPNs and Tor nodes. As a trade-off to these managed rules, there are some limitations on configuring the rules. For instance, you can see and disable each rules individually, but you get no visibility into the rule signature itself or to modify them. So to bring AWS Managed Rules to GA, we work with many customers on what is the right level of protection, maintaining low false positive while also keeping low false negative. Each customer had their own way of testing the rules and had different expectation for what is the right amount of false positive. When we launched at last year's reInvent, we invited one of our beta customers to the stage to speak about their experience. And we encourage you to take a look at it after the webinar and also explore it yourself as well. In addition to AWS Managed Rules, another major change that we introduced is our new API called WAFv2. In our old API, we have 2 API called WAF Regional and WAF, each of them for managing either global or regional resources. We combine them to create WAFv2, and from API perspective, it can be considered a separate service. We also offer consistent CloudFormation experience in the new API, as all rule types are now fully supported. On the console side, we now have more intuitive design for managing your WAF resource. This new API uses a new console, whereas the old API maintains the same look and feel. We have also simplified our service limit so that you can create more rules and you're not restricted by our limits anymore. For instance, there is no longer limitation on rules per web echo, and you can write more longer regex set and pattern lengths. We also introduced document-based rule writing with this release. In our old API, we used a system called reference-based rule writing. This made it really convenient to reuse the rules across multiple web echo, but made it difficult if you want to write your rules, especially if you attempt to delete the rule that is referenced elsewhere. It also requires multiple API calls to write a single rule statement. For instance, you could be looking at 5 to 10 different API calls just to update a rule to your web echo. So with a new API, we moved away from the reference model to the document-based model, where you write your rule statement in JSON or YAML if you're using CloudFormation. Some of the highlights are, with a document-based rule writing, is that you can copy, paste, and delete all the rules without any kind of restriction. It also provides you the top-down level overview as to what rules you have within your web echo. There are still few elements that use the reference model, such as IP set, rule group, and regex set. But these are limited towards elements that are highly likely to be reused. Earlier, we mentioned that we simplified our service limit, and we've done this by replacing the limit with a new concept called WCU, or Web Echo Capacity Unit. WCU is a dimension that is used to calculate and control the operating resources that are used to process your rules within a web echo. And by default, you are allowed 1500 WCU per web echo. WCU provides more flexibility around how you want to express your rules. You are no longer restricted by artificial limits such as rules per web echo. For example, in the old API, you'd be restricted to 10 rules, meaning if you want to do IP matches, you can define total of 100,000 unique IPs at once. However, under the new API, you can have up to 50 million unique IP at once. We also made some other enhancements such as support for statement nesting and OR logical operation, full CIDR range support, and also multiple chainable text transformation for sanitizing field before the inspection. So with all these changes, what remains the same? Existing features and terminology such as rate-based rule behavior and the WAF's performance have not been altered and they remain the same. In addition, AWS Marketplace Managed Rules are still supported and we are still onboarding more vendors as we speak. The existing APIs will continue to be supported as well, except the service has been relabeled as WAF Classic. However, we strongly urge customers to migrate to the new AWS WAF, as all new features will be on the new API only. So now I would like to take some time and showcase how easy it is to deploy AWS Managed Rules to your web application. So this is our main landing page with our new modern look and feel. As you can see, you're greeted with the Getting Started message, showcasing what's new in our service, and also give you resources that you can look on the right side as well. Now, let's create an AWS Managed Rule for your web application. To do this, all you have to do is to create a new web echo in the top right corner right here. And you'll be showing a wizard that tells you to provide information required to create your first web echo. Simply give it a name. And you can give a CloudWatch metrics as an optional if you desire. And let's create this in the CloudFront region. And now, this is where you'll associate this web echo to the resource that you might have. I will skip this step for the purpose of this demo. But if you want to add your resource, you can click Add AWS Resource, and you can browse whatever distribution that you might have. And also, if you're using Application Load Balancer or API Gateway, you can do the same thing to browse through what resource you want to protect. Click Next. On the second page, you'll be greeted with adding your own rules or adding your managed rules. To add managed rules, simply click Add Rules, Add Managed Rule Group. Now here, you can see AWS Managed Rules at the top. But in addition, you will also see the marketplace solution offered by some of our vendors as well. For instance, we have Cybersecurity Cloud right here for Japanese customers. And if you want to look at AWS Managed Rules, you just have to simply click on it as well. Here you can browse all the managed rules that we offer that I explained in the presentation. So you can see the core rule set, which primarily covers the OWASP area. And also Amazon IP reputation list for blocking threats that Amazon itself we have identified. So let's say you want to add a core rule set right here. And let's say you want to add an Amazon IP reputation list. Just simply set the toggle switch and go all the way at the bottom and click Add Rules. And that is it. You can see the rules has now been added, and you can also see how much WCU it uses. And let's just simply click Next. Now you can define the priority which the rules will fire in. We'll just leave it as a default. And you can configure the CloudWatch metrics name so that you can get real-time information on what's hitting your web echo. Click Next. And then you can review and create your web echo, making sure all the information you provided is correct. And simply click Create Web Echo. And that is it. So to recap what we said in the first section of this webinar, AWS Managed Rules is the quickest and easiest way to get started. You have a variety of rules to choose depending on your use case, and the rules are curated and managed for you. And you also have access to third-party rules through the AWS Marketplace. The new AWS WAFv2 API offers you much more flexibility as well, giving you less limitation, rule schema enhancements, and new console experience as well. Now, many customers will want to have more control or have a complex business logic that they will need to cover. So in this case, while AWS Managed Rules can definitely be helpful, you want to write your own custom rules on top of it as well. And this is where I'll do a more deeper dive into how rule writing works using the new API. So there are two ways to write your own rules within AWS WAF. Console is easier, but there are certain logic and operation that you will not be allowed to do. For instance, there are a max number of statements that you can configure, and you're not allowed to nest multiple logical statements. Coding in JSON or YAML offers you much more greater flexibility, but requires you to work in code. However, you can easily copy the code and reuse elsewhere. You can also version control so that you can roll back the changes very easily. Remember again that the rules are now live within your web echo and is no longer referenced. So here is a simple pseudo terminal with a JSON file that represents the web echo. At the top, you can see the name and a description of this web echo. Going in slightly deeper, you'll see a field called default action, which means that it's an action that will be taken if none of the rule matches. You can set this to block for positive security model, where by default you'll block all the requests coming in and only allow requests that matches your rule. Next, you have a list of all rule statements, which we will explore this later. And you have a visibility configuration option at the web echo level. As I mentioned earlier in this presentation, you can control whether to generate the sample requests or CloudWatch metrics for each web echo and rule that you create. And this is where you configure them in the code. Now, let's create this web echo. To create this web echo, you just have to simply call create web echo API. And you have to specify two parameters here. The first one is scope, and the second is region. Now, if you're creating a resource for CloudFront region, you have to set the region to US East 1 first, then set the scope to CloudFront. If you're creating a regional resource, you just have to simply set scope to regional and set the region code as desired. Once you create this web echo, let's say you want to retrieve this web echo again by calling the get web echo API. And you'll be presented with a similar looking page as before, but slightly different with additional information shown. For instance, you can see that we have new information, the ID and the RN itself of the web echo. And you also notice the capacity at the bottom, which tells you how much WCU this web echo is using. Lastly, you will notice something called lock token. Now, you need this lock token if you want to perform any kind of update to your web echo right after this API call. So for instance, let's say you made some changes and you want to update your web echo. You call the update web echo API, and you also need to specify the lock token that you have obtained by calling the get web echo in the previous API call. Now let's change gear by looking at one of the example rule statement. Here we have a simple string match statement that looks for the search string called watermelon. Going in deeper, the first field tells you the sequence in which the rule will execute, and the lower value represents higher priority. Then you can see the action taken by the rule itself if it matches, and you can set this to allow or count. Count is another word for monitor mode, where it will not take the action, but it will keep the record of it so that you can see what has hit your web echo within your log. Again, you have a visibility configuration similar to the web echo that I explained, but this is for the rule level. And then you get to our rule signature, which tells you what to inspect. And this format varies depending on which rule statement that you're using. Going in slightly deeper, the field to match tells us where to look within the request. And you can only have single field to match per rule each rule statement. And on the right side, you can see all the available fields that we offer today. Next, you can see the text transformation, where users have to simply list the desired transformation in order with a priority defined by you. We don't have time to cover all the rule statements, but here are a list of all the statements that are available as of today. So we have attack prevention, which includes SQLi detection, cross-site scripting attack detection, and managed rule group, which includes AWS Managed Rules and AWS Marketplace Rules. For traffic filtering, we have rate-based statement, IP set reference statement, and also geo-match statement or the country match statement. So the pattern matching, you have the regex and the string match. And you also have something called size constraint, where we will measure the length of the field and match it accordingly. Lastly, we have logical operations such as AND, OR, and NOT. I strongly suggest that you check out our WAFv2 API reference for full detail as to how you can structure these rule statements within JSON code. So continuing our example, but this time we'll cover a slightly more complex case of nesting rule statements. So in this rule statement, let's zoom into this portion where we're looking at the rule signature only. So this statement basically simply says that it will block the request that is detected as cross-site scripting attack and does not contain certain string or is from certain country. Essentially, you are creating an exception around the cross-site scripting detection that we offer. In orange, which is end statement highlighted, you can see how this is reflected in the code on the left, in the equation at the top, and also plain old English on the right. In this example, It shows two objects within the end statement, but you can put as many objects as you want. In a rest statement, it will simply reverse what's inside that statement, meaning that it will look at the opposite match condition that you specify within it. In green, we have OR statement, where it will perform the OR logical operation between the two statements that you provide. So here it will perform either the not by match statement or the geomatch statement. In blue, we have individual rules that we input around the logical statement. Combining all this together, you can see the full logic represented in different colors. And as you can see, you can mix and match different statements and different logical operators to create complex rules within AWS WAF. To calculate the WCU, you simply need to tally all the rule statements that you have used. So for example, the cross-site scripting detection uses 40 WCU, the byte match statement uses 10 WCU, and the country match statement or geo match statement uses 1 WCU. And combining all this, it will consume 51 WCU in total. The logical operators themselves do not consume any WCU. So here are some caveats to rule writing before you get started. First, try to leverage the console's built-in JSON editor for quick schema validation. Copy and paste the code into the editor to check. For string match, the inspection is primarily done in basic-4, and depending on which method that you are using to use our service, you may need to encode the string in before in basic-4 or provide the string as it is. For regex match, the inspection is done in UTF-8, and we uses per compatible regular expression with some restriction around it. Now, I'll spend some time on how you can write your own rules using our JSON editor. So going back to our console from our last demo, where I showed you how you can add AWS Managed Rules, now I will show you how you can add your own custom rules using the JSON editor within the console. Now, I already have a web echo created, so let's reuse that one. When you come to our overview page, the first thing you'll be shown is a CloudWatch metrics overview. And this is where, if in the code, when you set the CloudWatch metrics name, the metrics name will be listed down here, and the graph will be auto-generated by CloudWatch. You can also view this graph directly from the CloudWatch console as well. Next, you have something called sample request, where you'll be provided with a random sample of your request in the past 3 hours. Remember that sample request does not show you entire picture as to what has hit your web echo. It only shows you the random sample. So it is good for doing a sanity check and doing a quick verification. You can also get limited information about the request itself by just clicking on it and browsing. And here you can see that we have some junk data that's hitting our web echo. Now, if you want to get more complete picture as to what is hitting your web echo, simply go to Logging and Metrics tab and enable our full logging. This web echo already has a logging enabled. To enable logging, you need to first set up Kinesis Firehouse. And from Kinesis Firehouse, you can define which destination where the log should be outputted to. This includes S3 bucket, Redshift, Elasticsearch, and Splunk if you're using third-party SIM tool. Once you enable logging, you'll be presented with these kind of data. And here you can see that you have a web app call, and it tells you what rule has hit. So here we have a rule. This is one of the managed rule group, the common rule set, and it tells you what rule ID has hit the web app call and what action. And it also tells you information about the HTTP request, as you see here. Now let's go create that rule. So we click on rule, go to add rules, and add my own rules and rule group. Here you'll be presented with our visual rule builder, where you can actually use the console to build your own logical statement. But let's try use the visual rule builder and the JSON editor together to create a very complex rule statement, similar to what I have shown during my presentation, which is shown right here. So we will attempt to recreate this rule within our console and using our JSON editor. First, let's just give a name. So XSS exception. And if you recall, we first started out the rule using the end statement. So let's create that end statement right here. And then you want to do a cross-site scripting detection on body. So let's look at body. And you want to do cross-site scripting injection attack detection. And for text transformation, let's do HTML decode. And let's add another one. Let's do a lowercase. Now, we need to add a second statement to this end statement. So let's add another one. And this one, we'll just do a simple country block. And let's just block country Afghanistan. And then you can set the default action for the rule. We're happy with the block, so we'll just leave it as it is. But before hitting this add rule, go back all the way at the top and click on Rule JSON Editor. And you can see that whatever you built in the visual editor got recreated in JSON mode. Now, simply copy this, go to your favorite text editor, and just paste it in here. And then now we have an end statement with two objects inside. But this is not the statement that we want to create. We want to create the end statement. Within it, there's an or statement, and we also have a not statement. So to do this, go back to the console, go back to the rule visual editor. Now, showing you the schematic, now we'll attempt to create this part right here, the or, the not B and or C. To do this, select the or statement right here. And we need to change this to look at the string exception. So let's just add a contains string. And let's just say you want to look for watermelon. Let's remove the text transformation. And you can leave this as it is, because the last statement is stay the same, if you recall. Now go back to the JSON rule editor. And again, you can see that JSON has changed a little. And now we have or statement. Now, we don't need this entire rule. We just want this or statement inside. So simply copy the statement from here to down here. Back to your editor. And you need to replace this block right here, because this is the second object within the end statement. So simply highlight. Oh, and replace. And let's see if this statement is still valid. So I'm just gonna run a JSON validator. And you can see now we have end statement And inside, there's an OR statement. And it's looking at the byte state string match statement that looks for watermelon and the country. Now, this is still not the end state that we're trying to get to. We're close. We need to reverse this statement, add another statement around this. To do this, again, go back to the console, go to the Visual Rule Editor, and select not statement right here. And you can see that not statement does not support multiple objects, so this simply reduces down. And we want the exact same statement in inverse. So go back to the rule editor, and you can see the not statement right here. Again, simply copy. And again, replace this right here. And then let's check for the formatting again. And there we go. Now you have, within the end statement, you have cross-site scripting detection, and then you have an OR statement inside it with a not statement inside it. Now you finish creating this rule. Now simply copy all this rule, go back to your console, and simply select all and replace it. And click validate to see if your rule is valid. And this one is valid. Now, if you attempt to go back to the visual editor now, it will not actually let you do that because the visual editor does not support nested statement currently. So again, let's validate. And then you can add rules. And there you go. Now you have your custom rules, the more complex version of it. And you set the order as you desired and click save. So that concludes this demo as to how you can add your own custom rules using the JSON editor and also using the console to help you out to create your own advanced rule. So here are some tips on how you can troubleshoot your rules. So first, test the rules by putting it to count mode first. And you can use tools such as Postman or curl to generate test requests. Or if you have an environment set up properly, you may want to try replay the request to the web ACL for testing purposes. Use CloudWatch metrics and sample requests for a quick sanity check. It provides you a summary of what WAF has seen over a specific period of time, although it has a limited header information. And if you need more detail, do enable the logging through Kinesis Firehose. We highly suggest that you also leverage Elasticsearch and Kibana so that you can query the log data easily and also create a dashboard with it. Now, I'll be going over some tips on how you can plan out your migration from Classic to the new AWS WAF. So some caveat before you start your migration. You should start out with AWS Managed Rules and count mode. We encourage you to start small, then go big once you feel comfortable. And by starting out with AWS Managed Rules, you can establish the baseline that you feel comfortable and then slowly add your own custom rules on top of it. You should also try to plan out your rules, meaning you can use this opportunity to revisit some of the old rules and eliminate some of the redundant rules. The content from the OWASP white paper that we released back in July 2017 is still valid, but may overlap with AWS Managed Rules. So you may want to use your judgment as to whether you want to fully recreate them within AWS WAF or just simply use AWS Managed Rules. You should also think about using the rule group for reusability across multiple web ACL. For instance, if there are certain rules that you reuse multiple times, put it in a rule group and then reference them on each web ACL. So If you're using AWS WAF Secure Automation, do not attempt to migrate manually, as internal components will be referenced to the old rules and webACL. We will actually have version 3.0 that will be compatible with WAFv2. Thus, simply wait for the new version to be available and just deploy the solution. To help you out with this transition phase, we do have a new API that we will introduce in the near future to help you out with the migration. And it's called Migration API. Essentially, it will fetch the webACL from the WAF Classic that you specify. Then this API will read and generate CloudFormation template that represent equivalent webACL in WAFv2. And then you just simply have to deploy the template to recreate the webACL in the WAFv2 environment. All your rules within the old webACL will be replicated along with any IP set or regex set and rule group that was associated to the webACL. And given that it uses a CloudFormation, you can always roll back if some error has occurred as well. However, the Migration API will not transfer root group that has been associated by AWS Firewall Manager. For that, we recommend that you simply recreate the policy again within Firewall Manager. So that is it for today. Here are some parting words before we finish this webinar. AWS WAF provides first line of defense to your web application. It is highly scalable and flexible rule engine, and now gives you the AWS Managed Rules that you can get started quickly. And there are many customers today who are using AWS WAF to protect their workload. We do have a couple of documentation and helpful materials that in near future that you might be interested. We have a white paper coming in April, which provide you guidance for implementing AWS WAF in your production workload. We will also feature the blog post on migrating your rules from Classic to the new AWS WAF, and this will cover more thoroughly as to what you need to look into before migrating over. And we'll also provide you with a GitHub repository with sample JSON and YAML, where you can just copy our code that we provide and paste it onto the JSON editor and to create your own custom rules. Lastly, as I mentioned in the previous, we have WAF Security Automation version 3.0 coming up for the WAFv2. And that is it. Thank you very much for your time today. We welcome your feedback, so please share your thought on social media, and I'm happy to take any question that you might have today.